Good evening, everyone. This is a discourse that was taken by Scott Cochrane, and I learned a lot from it. I am Lola Oladele, and I feel that we also can learn from it. A leader's self-care when leading through challenging times. He started by saying, when a leader is under great pressure for extended period, it can crush a leader's spirit. In challenging times, leaders need to find way to restore their energy. And if we look at it, now are trying times. There's global crisis everywhere. So leaders would have down times, but we also need to find ways to restore our energy, to refill our tank. If we look at Proverbs 4:23, it talks about the fact that we need to guard our hearts because it is out of it that everything that we do comes from. Now, there are 10 questions you need to ask to know if you need to refill your tank as a leader. The first one, is my heart more compassionate or less before the crisis began? Find out, how has your heart been? Is it more compassionate? Is it less compassionate? Am I growing more or less learnable than I was before the crisis began? What impact is the crisis having on your ability to learn? Does laughter come to me more or less easily? Need to find out. Now that we're in a crisis, is it easy for you to laugh or is not easy? Fourth question, is my appreciation of natural beauty more or less heightened than it was before the crisis began? Let's find out. How do I appreciate things? Is it better or is it less? Would people describe me as more or less winsome than I was before the crisis? How would people describe you now? How were you described before the crisis? Would I consider myself to be more or less selfish than I was before the crisis? Ask yourself this question and be very truthful and honest about it. Am I finding out that since the crisis began, I am starting to rationalize unethical thoughts or behaviors? How are we rationalizing unethical thoughts? Are we saying this doesn't matter or this matters? Is what is right becoming what is wrong just because of the crisis? Do we say because things are tight, we have to do some unethical things to survive? We need to ask ourselves these questions. Since the crisis began, have I been noticing that I've been tempted by any sin patterns that would have previously not tempted me? Let's ask ourselves these questions. Has my outlook been more negative than positive since the crisis began? How have you been looking at things? Has it been positive? Has it been negative? Do you even see any positive thing in what is happening? Yes, it's a crisis, but how has been your outlook? Is my connection with God more or less fulfilling today than it was before the crisis began? Now, if you answer yes to any of the questions above, then you need to refill your tank as a leader. You may look at it, there are 10 questions. But if you answer one yes to any of them, then you need to refill your tank as a leader. What are the self-care strategies to fill your tank in order to maximize leadership effectiveness? Scott went to talk on about some of them. The first one, which may seem very funny, says sleep like a leader. In times of crisis, we need to maximize our time of rest when under pressure. Because most of the time when one is under pressure, one may not get sufficient sleep, and it has a way of affecting one's efficiency as a leader. We need to get sufficient rest. It is recommended 7 to 8 hours of sleep. It helps us to rejuvenate, it helps us to even repair, and it helps us to refill. What other thing can we do to refill our tank, to refill our energy? Protect your soul in the morning. How do you start your day? It's very important that when you start our days, we should restrict the urge to look at messages on our phones, emails, social media feeds. Sometimes it may be very difficult. You wake up and the first thing you go to is that phone that is beeping. They call for our attention. But these are soul draining. They're soul drainers. We should avoid filling our minds with all the bad news that are going around. We should try as much as possible to mind how we start our day. We should replace these intrusions in our mornings with exercise, with prayers, with social connections. Begin your day by spending time taking care of your health, taking care of your relationships, and your connections with God. How you start your day is very important as a leader. It determines everything about the day. How could you redesign your morning routine to better fill your tank? Ask yourself this question. We are looking at self-care strategies to refill our tanks as leaders. Now you have started your day well. How do you keep your tank full as you move through the day? You must learn to slow down. Crisis seasons tend to pull us in different directions. You have to do this, you have to do that. And that could be very exhausting. We should move around with purpose, urgency, and determination, but not with unsustainable speed. The key to guiding one's heart is ruthlessly eliminating hurry from one's life. This is a quote which Scott gave by somebody. Be purposeful, not hurried. Walk with purpose, but with a manageable pace. It's very important that we pace our speed properly during the day. How could you slow down your pace during this challenging season? Ask yourself that question. In order to refill our tanks as leaders, we need to ask ourselves, how could I end my day in a way that protects my soul? You must know when your leadership day ends. Stop and spend time in leisure with family and friends. Try not to walk beyond the set time of your leadership day so that your effectiveness won't diminish. Most of the time as leaders, we just want to keep working and working and working. We must be able to say this is when it stops, and then I can focus on family and friends. Yes, it may be a challenging time. Some still have to go to work, and even now that we're at home, some may even say, okay, I want to read books, I want to do an online course. You must still be able to put a time and end to it so that you can be able to spend time with family and friends. In conclusion, I would say, according to Scott, leadership in crisis is hazardous to the healthy soul of a leader. We need to take conscious effort to protect our energy tanks. We should give attention to how we start our day, how we pace throughout the day, and how we end our day. And when we do all these things, I know that we will be able to refill and take good care of ourselves in these trying times. Once more, thank you, and I pray that each and every one of us will go through this time successfully, and we will always refill. We will not be tired, we will not be weary. Thank you. God bless.